Welcome to Tampa Home Talk with your host, native Tampa real estate girl, Katrina Madewell, a full-time, passionate, out-of-the-box thinker, love for home ownership kind of realtor with over 21 years of combined mortgage and real estate experience. Tune in every week at this time for expert advice on everything you need to know about home ownership, finance, maintaining great credit, building wealth, and making your everyday life better, and how you can be financially successful today and tomorrow. Remember, love where you live or let Katrina fix it. Now, here's your host of Tampa Home Talk, Katrina Madewell.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, and you're listening to us on the Real Estate Radio Network. In studio today, we have our show partner and friend, Aaron Davis. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Katrina, how are you?
I am fabulous.
Good.
Always love to have you on the show. We have been talking over the last couple months and have experienced some things in our business that we thought would make a fabulous show today. So we're going to talk about some of the changes that we've had recently with regards to hidden fees, hidden costs, lien search issues, open permits, and all these quirky little things we see. And there's some other things, too, with regards to bank-owned properties that we've experienced over the last couple months, and it's something you should be aware of if you are looking at purchasing a bank-owned property.
Yep.
So if you, by the way, I know you're probably in and out of the car, so if you miss any part of today's show, don't forget to catch our show in its entirety on our website, which is tampahometalk.com, and we are also available on Facebook and Twitter, where we will post the show at tampahometalk.com.
All right.
So where do you want to dive into? We talk about lien search stuff first?
Oh, man. Oh, it's such a sexy industry, the sexy world of title insurance, right?
I know, right?
I know.
But these are changes that we've seen that, like, I think even when we first saw it, we're like, oh, wait, there's something, like, for me, I usually don't sit through the classes with the attorneys, even though I should.
Right.
I kind of, like, when we get a new contract to read through it, I go, oh, that's new. What's that? Let me read that. And then sometimes I call the attorney and go, okay, what does this mean exactly?
Yeah. Well, and to be honest with you, and I'll share a lot right now. A lot of attorneys didn't pick up on this either. We actually had there's some when a contract comes out, I think golly it was like 02. The contracts were like 2 pages long, and then the 06 are like 6 pages long. I think by the year that's how many pages it goes to. So we're up to like 13-page contract.
We are
13, 14 pages now.
If you got addendums, you might be 20.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So so every year there's more changes to the contract, and so there were a few major things, and we teach these classes to agents and whatnot, and there were a few things that they popped in this one, but the biggest one, in my opinion, one of the two biggest changes was this. It was called a municipal lien search, and a lot of folks hear that and they go, "Oh, well, lien search. That's what title companies do anyway." No, they don't. So I'll back up and kind of tell you how we got to this point. What a municipal lien search covers. This is different. This has changed the landscape of our business, and this has changed the definition of title insurance. And every transaction that has occurred up till now, this can have an effect on. And so here's where it is. The state of Florida is the most messed up state in the country because of our laws and our rules. And the way that the statutes and regulations are written in the state of Florida, it says that the county and the city can attach liens to a property even though it's not recorded. So
how the heck are you supposed to figure that out with title?
There you go. And so when I tell people from out of state this, especially a lot of our institutional investors, the California guys, Arizona, New York, they're like, what? I'm like, yeah, we're messed up. It's just how it is.
Which I think before they weren't really doing it. Like, even though they could, they weren't doing it.
Exactly. So what it was is that was the way that the statute was written. And so what that means, what that translates to, is that an unpaid water bill can attach as a lien to the property. Can being the big word. A code enforcement item that has been performed but not recorded can still attach to the property.
Oh, those are great ones.
Oh, yeah. And the tricky one, it's not so much. Isn't really state law, but it's county code more so is permits. The permits is the one that is catching everybody by the seat of their pants right now, because we've got just closings delayed, all sorts of chaos going on because of this item.
We have one right now with regards to permits. It's a hot mess.
Yeah. All three of those, I've got great examples on all of them.
So how we got to this place, I this is what I believe, and you feel free to correct me if you think I'm off or a little different of opinion. I think with all these bank-owned properties and foreclosures and short sales and walkaways, you know, you had people that had the grass 10 feet tall, and then the rats are coming out of it, and the neighbors are complaining. So, of course, the city and county has to go mow the grass, and they're going to attach a lien on because that's not free, right? There's equipment, and there's people that have to go do that.
Yep.
And then with regards to the power bills and the water bills, I mean, that kind of stuff can just snowball. And, you know, people tap into the thing, and they're using the water. I mean, you hear all kinds of crazy things that people do. So it's my belief that even though it's always been there, it's never been anything we've checked because it's never happened.
Yeah.
You know, they're seeing the HOAs putting their liens on it, foreclosing on properties and doing all these things. And they say, you know what? We should get paid too.
Yeah. Well, I explain it as this. There's a lot of laws that are out there that are buried down deep in statutes that no one really pays attention to. So you hear all these jokes, oh, it's legal in Alabama to own more than 2 dogs, or, you know, just crazy stuff like that. And you're like, where, you know, it was written 100 years ago. It's never going to apply. So these same thing, the statute has been sitting out there. It's called Section 159 of the Florida Code. And it's there to protect the government or the county or the city municipalities in these circumstances. But I liken it to this. In the past, the government wasn't broke.
Right.
Well, guess what? Now they're broke. The state, the county, the cities.
They're looking for
everybody is looking for every dollar, and they can only raise our taxes so much. And I'll say this, the property taxes had gone way down because that's always based on values and appraisals. So but all the counties and cities still need that revenue. They still need that money to pay the bills to do all the things. So, which
is taxes, right? We talk about, I mean, we know in our industry, because we deal with it all the time, if you're non-escrows, meaning your taxes and insurance are not included in your mortgage payment, and you don't pay your tax bill, somebody out there is going to pay that tax bill for you, and they're going to collect interest on it, because the county and the city and those municipalities need that money to operate their budget. Period.
But what used to be a $2,000 tax bill is now only $1,500.
Right.
And so the state took a haircut for tax revenues. So then they're looking around going, where can we make more money? Well, oh, wait, hold on. There's that statute. You remember that one that was there from 100 years ago? We can enforce that. So in the past, we used to always joke. We used to always joke and say, you know what? Seller's water bill, $30 outstanding. You know, a buyer moves into the property, the county's not going to attack the buyer with a $30 water bill. That would just be mean. Well, guess what? Now they're doing it. You know, so now
interest and penalties.
They're pounding everyone, you know, for these water bills or some of these unrecorded items, and then the permits too. So you know, like the unrecorded code enforcement. What that means is the grass is growing, it got high, someone magically cut it, and then we closed. And nothing was ever recorded. Well, the reason nothing was ever recorded was because it's sitting in this big stack of papers on the clerk's desk waiting to be recorded, because everybody's short-staffed. They don't have enough clerks now.
They had to cut the people, right?
They had to cut the people.
Bills.
Absolutely. So the first thing they do when they lose revenue is they cut staff. So there's less staff to do all these things. These bills for these code enforcement items still have been performed but not recorded. So what happens is we close today, then that bill gets recorded 5 days after the fact, and the buyer inherits a $200, $300, $500 bill that no one even knew existed.
For somebody that mowed the lawn.
For somebody that mowed the grass, or there was something wrong, you know, an awning hanging off of a building that was dangerous, and they came by and removed it, whatever. So any of those items. And
just in case, if you're listening to Tampa Home Talk right now, and we're saying recording, you're kind of thinking, what is that? Whenever you buy a property, and we're a I'm thinking title theory, lien theory.
Yep.
We're a lien theory state. So essentially you get the deed in advance and you get to mortgage it as collateral, which means they're going to record it as a public record in the documents, which we used to look at on microfilm a long time ago, and now you can look at it online. So that's technically what a recording is.
Correct.
And that's what you guys search.
Yeah. We search the public record, and public record is the official records. Those are actually the clerk of the court. That's what title companies have always searched in the past. So now with this new contract, they're saying, well, part of title is now inclusive of these items, these new 3 searches. So title companies and attorneys' offices and realtors and sellers are all scrambling now because, these are items that can result in fines, fees, liens, and problems.
And we're going, okay, what company is going to research this? Like, who's going to check this?
So here's the third part to that is the permits, and that's the trickiest one, in my opinion, is a permit. And here's real world examples. A hurricane blows through Tampa Bay back in 2004, and everyone's rushing around hiring a general contractor to get up and fix their roof. They get up there, they slap shingles on, they fix the roof, the homeowner pays them the check for the repair, and then the general contractor goes away. No one, I'm a homeowner. I don't know if he did his job properly. I mean, it looks like they're shingles. My roof's not leaking, and I paid him, and I'm happy with the product, so I'm assuming he did his job right.
It's not raining in the house anymore, so it looks okay to me.
Right. There's no longer water on my living room floor. So now it turns out that we'll come to find out that was an 04. Now we're going to do a closing in 2014. We go to do a search, and we run permit search and find out that the contractor never closed the permit. He opened the permit to fix the roof, but never closed it.
That's a huge one. Like looking back now, we never realized how much of that there was.
Oh, absolutely.
Until it's a part of the contract, and we're like, oh.
Well, and here's the catch. So it's like, all right, so what? The work's done. Does that even matter? Here's the catch, and here's where the county and the state got really smart. They will not open a new permit until all old permits are closed. Oh. So guess what a house needs every 10 years? A roof, an AC unit. Something that requires a permit to be pulled. So I say this, now you've got just every transaction that we've done for the last 30 years is subject to a problem based around a permit. Because a home buyer is going to come back 5 years from now and say, Billy Bob at ABC Realty, you did this closing, and Hillsborough Title did the closing on that one, and they didn't close this permit out. Well, prior to September of this year, it wasn't required.
It wasn't on the contract.
It wasn't on the contract, so it was never done before, except what you were saying in that foreclosure REO world. That foreclosure and REO world, it kind of opened Pandora's box.
Right.
And that's where those transactions, municipal lien searches and permit searches, became the norm in that arena. Now it is the norm and required in all of real estate.
It's interesting. We have a lot of stories to share with you, and we're going to talk about some of the active things that we see where you have to take a very quick break, but don't steer away because we're going to get into some of these fun little quirky permit issues and things that we see. And we're going to also talk about in the latter part of the show, the bank-owned properties, and when you buy them, what you might expect to find as a major surprise in your title insurance. So we'll talk about that coming up in just a minute after the break. Back in a minute. Welcome back, and you are listening to Tampa Home Talk. I'm your host, Katrina Madewell, with Charles Rutenberg Realty on the Real Estate Radio Network. Very happy to have in studio today Aaron Davis with Hillsborough Title, one of our show partners, a lovely, lovely, fabulous person to work with. Always helps us get those tricky little deals done, and we're going to talk about some of those crazy REO things that we see in the latter part of the show. But if you missed the earlier part of today, don't forget to catch up the podcast in its entirety, and you can find it at tampahometalk.com, and we're also on Facebook and Twitter at Tampa Home Talk. Off-air number 813 813-377-2775. We can connect you guys with Hillsborough Title. We're also going to post up their website. So if you're a seller thinking about selling, there's a nice little seller's net sheet calculator on your website that we use all the time. Yep. Our off-air number, 813-377-2775. So the earlier part of the show, we were talking about some of the changes to the contract with regards to lien searches, changes in the law, open permits, municipality liens, so open water bills and grass cutting bills and all of those fun things.
Yeah.
So where we left off, we were talking about permits. So let's go back into that example that you gave and share, what happens when Billy Bob goes out of business. So back up and recap.
So we were using, this was an 04 roof that was repaired. So, a regular homeowner hires a general contractor. They come out, repair the roof. The process is the contractor has to pull a permit to do the work, and then he does the work, and then he's supposed to go back and close the permit. Well, not everybody closes the permits because back then it didn't result in any issues. There was nothing. All right, so what? I didn't close it.
Well, we have this running joke in our office. The contractors that we work with, they're fabulous. Like if you want something built, they are the guy to do it.
Yep.
But if you want them to do paperwork or like something like that, you better forget it. They better have like some support staff.
And I don't blame the contractor. They're great at doing work.
Right.
But when there are county and state requirements for all these documentation, that's where we're at now is obtaining or them going back and closing out the permit. So now,
now we're 2014.
We're 2014. We're 10 years later. We're selling my house. So the first thing the homeowner does is calls the general contractor that performed the work to close out the permit. Well, do you think a GC roof contractor from 2004 is still in business? There are some who very, very good, but a lot of those were here today, gone tomorrow because that was during the hurricane season. They were in here slinging hammers and got out of Dodge. So you call the general contractor, they're out of business. So then you call another general contractor. Hey, Mr. General Contractor, can you sign off on this other general contractor's work? Absolutely not. That is a huge lawsuit waiting to happen. Their liability insurance won't allow it. So who do I call next? Now you got to call basically an engineer, and an engineer has to look at it and go, okay, this work was done to spec, so we can now go and close the permit. Well, the hidden cost in all of this is, there's a fee to open the permit or reopen an expired permit.
Any idea what that is around our Tri-County
I've
area?
seen it depending on the job, but I've seen the fees as high as $200 to reopen the permit. And then you hired either a general contractor to finish the job or fix the job, or an engineer, so that can range dramatically. And then there's a fee to close the permit. So as soon as I see a roof permit, I automatically say $600 at least. That's just kind of the norm. So one of the stories that they ran into down in Ruskin, so down in South Hillsborough, there was a house that this gentleman was selling to one of the big hedge funds. And all the big hedge funds has required, municipal lien searches and permit searches ever since they started buying houses 3 years ago, even prior to the new contract. So the gentleman's selling his house. He's got a pool. They do a title search. Title's clear. Matter of fact, he owned it free and clear. The guy owned the house outright. And so he's thinking this is going to be an easy transaction.
Speaking, you shouldn't have any liens or mortgages or anything.
Nope. So no mortgages, no liens. Everything's good. This guy's been doing the right thing all his life. And the permit search uncovers that there was a open permit on the pool. Specifically, it never had a final plumbing inspection. So this guy bought the house. He's selling it in 2013. He bought the house back in like 2005. The house was built original in 1997. The pool was built in 1998. So from 1998 till now, this permit has just been living out there. And it has gone through multiple closings. This house has traded hands numerous times, but it's never been searched before. No one ever searched for permits. So lo and behold, this one's found. We have to close the permit out in order for the buyer to buy per the contract. So you have to pay. First of all, we called the pool contractor from 1998. So do you actually
get
wrong? Yeah, not even in business any longer. We call another contractor. Will you sign off on this contractor's work? Wrong, not going to happen. So then we call an engineer, and the engineer goes out there and he goes, look, this really is just a risk assessment. This is a hole in the ground with water in it, and it's not leaking. Therefore, I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with the plumbing, and I am fine signing off on that permit to close it. So that's the engineer. They went to school for that. They have a degree. They're allowed to do that. So you got $200 to open the permit. You got $300 for the engineering inspection. He goes down to the county to close the permit, and the county goes, wrong, you cannot close this permit. And he's like, why? I'm signing off on it. They said, in the case of a pool, you only have everything else in the world. You only have to bring it up to code the year that the work was done, except for a pool. A pool, you have to bring to current code for child safety and disabilities, ADA. So what was required in 2013 that was not required in 1998? Child safety gates. Mm-hmm. So this seller had to install child safety gates around this pool to the tune of $1,500 in order for the permit to be closed.
Was it an open pool with no screen lanai, or
it was I think there was a screened-in lanai, but back then they didn't have, like I said, the child safety gates, nor did they have the alarms on the doors going out the rear. So I understand the reasoning. I mean, this is the county is looking after the safety of kids and disabled, but in this situation, this poor seller, he had to stroke out $2,000 out of his pocket in order to sell it, because he had to clear the items per the contract.
Just to put a fence up that he was never going to use.
Yeah.
Selling.
It's crazy.
Poor guy.
And he goes back to when he bought it in 2005 and chews his realtor out, and they chew the title company out. And in further inspection, I looked back and I said, sir, the title company didn't do anything wrong, because we weren't required to search stuff like that back then. And your realtor didn't do anything wrong, because they don't have control over those items. And in the contract, it didn't say to search for permits. So now it's the norm, and these types of things are just happening all over the place. Roofs are a dime a dozen. Now you've got issues with unpermitted work.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot.
Yeah. Well,
and the appraisers are starting to flag them out too. Like, they're looking for things that are not permitted, like, garage conversions, extensions, patios, all these things that need a permit, which, we did a show before with Pasco County chief building official in the permit department, and it's crazy. Like, you have to have a permit for everything, even a shed.
Yeah. Anything, and I liken it to, we have all these little cheat sheets that we give to our agents now to say, look, these are what you need a permit for and what you don't. And so basically, I just liken it to this. Anything that can hurt you needs a permit. So paint, not going to hurt you. You don't need a permit for paint. Flooring, I don't think you need a permit for flooring. Electrical can hurt you.
Right.
A roof can fall on your head. And plumbing can drown you.
Can fly off.
Yes.
Yeah, they can hit the neighbor's house.
Just think, if it can hurt you, then it needs a permit. So now we're having to go back and like you said, the appraisers are pulling it up. So on the property appraiser's office, it shows as a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and the appraiser gets there and it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Well, something happened. But they look back and no permits were pulled. It's a huge liability.
I mean, people, especially with electrical and that type of stuff. I mean, it's one thing if you want to try to install laminate floors yourself, whatever.
Yeah.
If it's crooked, no harm, no foul. You're not going to injure anyone. But when you start messing with plumbing and heating and electrical, especially, I mean, you're talking about house fires if you do something wrong.
Yeah.
And your house fire can affect your neighbor's house fire if it spreads.
Yeah. And it's really a big liability issue for everybody. So I'm thankful. I wish this would have been done years ago, so we would not be having the conversation today, because we'd all be accustomed to this by now. But since it's so new and it's affecting so many people, it's now the talk of the town. That's the top of the conversation amongst real estate professionals is the issues over municipal lien searches and permit searches.
So the crazy part is, like, even if these people are out of business, it can be fixed.
Yes.
But the question is, at that part, like, what's that going to cost?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got one right now. This is a doozy. It was a stilt home, and there was a deck added and a deck was added. I don't know if it was on the second story or what, but deck was added, and then there was no permit pulled for that particular addition. Well, then the home was resold, and the person that bought it, who is a licensed general contractor, added an addition. And so, but you're allowed to do your own work. Right. So he does this whole addition.
Pull a homeowner's permit.
Basically, now we're having to go back. He's having to like re-pour concrete, add pylons, to the stilt home. It's a $10,000 nightmare. So yeah, it's just
like
chaos.
You said, Pandora's box. They're getting so strict on these permits. Like this whole municipal lien search and open permit thing has just opened up a wave of just stuff for people just doing a permit for anything.
Yeah, but now can you imagine? So now the box has already been opened. Okay, we're aware of the issues, and we're thankful that we're having to close those out. If I'm a homeowner, I'm very thankful that my real estate professionals did everything and closed all the utilities, unrecorded code enforcement, closed out all open permits, and I'm walking to a home without any issues for the rest of my life because that's what I bought. I bought the American dream. I did not buy the American dream with a small nightmare in the corner. So that's what I paid for, and so it. But what we don't want to do is then go back, because there is talk about removing that municipal lien search from the contract now. I'm like, can you imagine if a buyer got hurt from unpermitted work and found out that, wow, that was required, and then you people removed that? I'm suing. Yeah. I'm suing everybody.
The most protection you can give the buyer and any due diligence that you can give them and that opportunity to do that due diligence before they take occupancy to the property is a lot less liability on me. It's a lot less liability on you. And I want them to do it. Yeah. So I don't think it's something we should remove either. And I agree with you that we should have probably started doing it earlier. And I think in South Florida they were. In Miami-Dade, Broward County, some of those places.
They did because that's always been the norm down there for the last 10 years is because those cities and municipalities. Miami, I didn't even know this. Did you know Miami-Dade, the county of Miami-Dade, has 53 municipalities?
Oh, I believe
53 cities within.
Many cities within a big city.
You got it. And so every single one of them have been caught for years with these permit items or unpaid water bills, and it cost the city millions of dollars. So they've enacted this statute for years and years and years, and it's just now making its rounds to the rest of the state.
Well, they're so populated down there. Like some of the products we have here, like the USDA and some of those, which eventually, probably sooner rather than later, we're not going to have either because of how our population is growing. But that stuff's been gone there for a while because their population is so big. Yeah. Well, the big thing is there's a lot of fraud.
Well, there's a lot of fraud, and in this case, this adds cost and time to a transaction.
Hold that thought, Aaron. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to take a very quick break, and we're going to pick up where we left off with regard to all the hidden fees, costs, lien search, municipality liens, and open permits. And then we're going to dive into the REO stuff that we promised and those extra fees that a buyer may encounter when you purchase a bank-owned property. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. This is your host, Katrina Madewell. Aaron Davis is our guest for today, and we'll be back in just a minute. Welcome back. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. And this is your host, Katrina Madewell. We have in studio today Aaron Davis with Hillsborough Title. And we're talking about some of the hidden fees, costs, a lot of the changes that we've seen recently with regards to open permits that you may have on your property and not even realize it. Lien searches that have popped up over the years that weren't there years ago. Even if your property has changed hands several times over the last decade, it's something you should be aware of. So our off-air number, in case you would like to reach out to Aaron or someone at Hillsborough Title or us, that number is 813-377-2775. You can also catch us on Facebook, Twitter, and across the web at Tampa Home Talk. 813-377-2775. You can call us or text us on that off-air number. So, to pick up where you left off. So now we have these contractors that are saying, whoa, wait a minute, lien search, open permit, wasn't my work, not doing it.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're hearing quite a bit. And so now you're having to go out and hire new contractors to fix old contractors' work, and it's just it's unwinding. It's open Pandora's box, like we were saying. So, but we're seeing a lot of interesting stuff out there that you just, I don't think the homeowner would typically know was even work that needed a permit.
I've done this for 22 years, Aaron, and when I had them on my show, I learned something every show. Like every show, when I had them on, I was like, wow, you need a permit for that?
Yeah.
It was just crazy, the stuff you need a permit for. Before we actually run out of time, because I know we're in the last segment of the show, I do want to talk about the REO stuff, and then we'll pick up on whatever time we have left. And I know you have some cool stories, but we had a transaction pretty recently, like in the last couple of months. And for example, in our area here in Greater Tampa Bay, which is not the same as you move a little further south, but in our area, it's predominantly customary on a regular sale, right? Not builders or anything like that, for the owner, the seller, the homeowner, or the owner's agent, whoever they have a relationship with, to choose the title insurance company. And they also pay for doc stamps on the deed, and usually owner's title insurance is typically a seller's expense. Mm-hmm. Now, on these bank-owned properties, we are seeing where, it's a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or one of these, and they're saying we're exempt from doc stamps on the deed, and, we'll pay owner's title insurance, but we're going to pick it, right, which is normal. So one of the things that we've had to do, which is an extra step, and it matters, I think, even more on the smaller transactions, right?
Yes.
And you can chime in on that in a second. But what we experienced when we were trying to put together fees and just make sure they were in line, we asked for a preliminary HUD or a settlement statement so we can get an idea what those title costs are, because they can be different from one company to the next. And since the seller in this particular example is, it was Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, one of those, it's a bank-owned property. They were choosing the company, which is one of these big house attorneys, to close it and do the title insurance. And so we get it back, and the closing search exam and the other fees that are legitimate fees, but there's some junk stuff in there, right, was more than the title insurance. Okay. So this particular one was $125,000. So, and I went back and looked, Hillsborough Title did it for, because we ended up sending that one to you guys because you were better, even with the buyer paying for the title insurance versus the fees that they were trying to tack on. Plus, they were bumping up the amount of the piggyback policy, which we could probably have a whole show on that. But it's what protects you, the homeowner, is title insurance, because your lender's policy is different. So, at what amount would you say, Aaron, because at some point, obviously, title insurance is relevant to the loan amount.
Sure.
But at what loan amount would you say that a buyer really, really definitely needs to look at that? Because probably a certain amount and under, right?
Yeah, it varies a lot. And again, I think, understanding why that occurs. So Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac are government entities. And what they do is when they own all these properties, they contract with law firms or title agencies to do all of their closings in an area, perhaps even the entire state. But usually they kind of break it up: Tampa, Orlando, Miami, etc. So they contract with those companies and only pay them X amount of dollars a file. So if they say we're only going to pay you, let's just say for round numbers, they're going to pay you $1,000 a file. But some files may take months to cure, to go through the process.
To fix the foreclosure mess.
To fix the problem. So
because you guys are the ones that do it. I don't think a lot of people know that.
Correct.
But you guys are the ones that fix a lot of that crap.
A lot of that crap. So and literally it is crap. There's a lot of just bad, again, another show, but bad foreclosures. So if you have $1,200 in a file that you're only going to pay get paid $1,000 on, you got to make it up somewhere. So they charge it to the buyer, which they're allowed to do so. And so that's where we find that we're seeing higher and higher and higher buyer side closing fees. So the contract is written so that the buyer can choose to select and can choose to pay.
Well, we have to change it because, you know, when we're representing the buyer, we want to have their best interest at heart. And if the seller's going to pay a fee and a big chunk of that expense, you know, we obviously want them to have that cost and not the buyer.
Correct. So what we find is like, you know, title is title. I mean, there's little things that we all do a little bit differently, but like since, you know, Katrina and I have a relationship, she knows that my office is going to deliver the same product over and over and over again, and she knows that she can call me at any time to get something done. Well, you may not have that relationship with, you know, XYZ title company.
It's non-existent. I can guarantee you.
It's not. So you can choose for that transaction to be held at our company or the company of your choosing. And what we're finding is that in a circumstance where I'd say the transaction being less than, let's just call it $150,000. That sounds about the fee range. We can close that deal and have the buyer pay the title insurance, and it still be less than what it would have been.
Than having the seller pay the title insurance with higher fees.
You got it. And quite frankly, in some of those situations, since I know both sides of the table, we are doing the attorney's office a favor by closing that deal because they would lose money on that where we could make money on that. So that's that's the way it all works.
In my experience too, Aaron, and we've had, you know, closings with many different people and attorneys and title agencies over the years. And it's been my experience, not to take anything from the attorneys, but we're not an attorney state. So the ones that I've had, with the exception of one, it was a guy in Brandon that I'll rename nameless, but most of the attorneys, the paralegals are the ones doing the work. And the attorneys are familiar with the contract stuff. They don't know crap about the paperwork that the buyer's lender is sending. They don't really know how to prepare a settlement statement. They don't know how to fix any of that stuff.
No, they're
so the title agencies know more about that than the attorneys do. Yeah,
well, and they're really just working one side of the transaction, as that's the seller's side. They're not accustomed. So think about this: if they're getting they're getting paid less per file, they have to hire people that make less per file.
Right.
Well, our business is not, you know, it's not a minimum wage business. You know, we have to hire people that know what they're doing, and experience.
Yeah, because there's nothing
money.
Stressful about people being homeless.
No, not at all. You know, and that's so that what they're doing is we're finding more and more that a lot of those companies are outsourcing overseas. You're getting a lot of work coming in out of foreign countries and Asia and parts of Africa and you know they're outsourcing those just to outsource processes, which I understand the reasoning, but you're getting poor service in return. Poor service.
And I would almost question how much they really know about the process and what they're doing. Because you're talking about clear title, which is huge.
It's questionable. You know, it's questionable as to what there's certain things I believe that they can do. But Florida in particular is so specific. Again, back to the original conversation about permits and municipal liens, we have weird laws. We have very strange statutes. And I guarantee you the rest of the country, the rest of the United States does not know what Florida does, much less another country.
We're almost as weird as California, right?
We're a weirdo state. I mean, it's just the way it is. So, you know, that's back when we were talking about like foreclosures and whatnot. California and Arizona and a lot of the West is a different. It's actually a judicial non-judicial foreclosure state. Florida's a judicial foreclosure state, meaning borrowers have more rights in Florida than they do in California. That's why O.J. Simpson still has a house here. Okay,
that's right. All the freaks move here.
That's right. So, what that makes happen is California, for instance, the average foreclosure time in California right now, the average inventory foreclosures is about 120 days. Florida's still over 900 days. So of inventory and foreclosures.
There's, you know, in those states, and like, you know, Georgia's one of those states, for example, you don't see people living in a home for a year or 2 years after they haven't made a payment. I mean, you're at not 60, 90 days, you're out.
Yeah.
The eviction process filed, foreclosure is done, you're out.
One of our attorneys recently found a person in Florida who had not made a payment in 8 years. had not made a payment in 8 years and was still residing in the home because was
that a discovery type thing?
It was crazy. They were going for a short sale, and at that point he said, "Why don't you go talk to another attorney, because there is a statute somewhere back, another weird Florida statute. If you haven't made your payment in over 5 years to a bank, you may own that home free and clear." That's another show altogether.
Oh, my goodness. And, plus squatters. Like, we haven't even talked about squatters. That's another
that's another big issue altogether, too. People breaking into houses, living there for free, and then having to be evicted to get out. I love the law.
It's, I found that out when I was young, and I lived alone, and I let somebody stay with me. And I realized it doesn't even matter if they pay rent. Like, as long as they do a dish, that's their financial contribution for their contribution, and you have to physically evict them.
And you have to evict them. I know it's it's crazy the way our laws are set up. So
the big things are the lien search issues, which are the things that attach for water bills, grass cutting,
grass cutting and code enforcement
things
items.
You have paying. There's different things they could tag you on for. The changes in the law, which was that 2013 or 2014?
It was September of 13.
Okay, and then the open permits, which I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
No, and quite frankly, again, I think it's the right thing to do. I think if I'm a homeowner, I want to own my American dream outright.
Yeah, I agree with you. So what's some of the craziest stories that you've seen with regards to this whole hidden fees, cost, permit stuff?
Well, I
know you got some good ones. You're up to how many offices now?
Well, I think from the last show, when was I last on? A few months ago. So we're up to 16 locations now. We had acquired. There was about 7 that we even either opened or acquired since March. So it's been a busy time for us, but we're thankful and blessed, and we opened up all the way up north to Spring Hill and south down to Lakewood Ranch. We got 2 over in Polk County now, Lakeland and Winter Haven. So we've seen weird stuff across the board at all the offices. I'd say the farther out in the wood. Now, I'm born and raised in Plant City, so I'm allowed to say this. We live in the sticks. We live in the woods. So the farther out in the woods that you go, the weirder stuff that you find. So you get, like you said, you find permits for sheds and pole barns and stuff like that, and then you've got a lot of issues that are around the cost. That's another conversation too. Is with the municipal lien searches and the permits. A lot of the counties are finding that they can make money to charge for access to the information. That's the next issue. Is we're seeing now. To get a copy of the water bill, some cities are charging $40, $50, $60, $70. To get the unrecorded code enforcement information, $75, $85. So,
and I'm sure Florida Realtors are going to be all over that, because that's one of the things that they, one of the things that when we visited Tallahassee and we did Great American Realtor Days, and you see this when you guys order estoppels, which is HOA and condo communities and that kind of stuff, the amount that these companies are charging just to find out if there's liens on the property and where they're at, if they're current, if they're overpaid, if they're underpaid, whatever, is crazy. So they were trying to get legislators to put a cap on, what that fee and amount can be.
Yeah. And I mean, we're seeing in that world, we're seeing, $450, $650 now for a piece of paper.
For an estoppel?
For an estoppel. There's an attorney's office that is now charging $650 for the estoppel. Another HO management company that we deal with a lot is now up to $450 in some communities.
And that's the bad part, too, because I know specifically thinking about a client we had a while back. She, same thing, bought a bank-owned property. Their attorney did it. Local company, by the way. Like, I physically visited their office myself because I had a lady that was, her mom was elderly. She was going to be living with them, and it was just creating a lot of stress and havoc on them. And, they're going to be homeless. So that makes anybody stressed out. Yeah. So they just, it was a mess. And they ended up charging so much money. There was another attorney that was still due fees. And then it sold, like the people that actually is doing for them changed, but it was like 2 years past HOA. And then you get into how much they're actually allowed to collect.
Yeah.
It's insane. But I definitely think they should cap that because it's not fair to the buyer because they're the one paying that.
Yeah. I know it's when there's a need for access to information, there's always somebody who will figure out a way to charge for it. So that's what we're starting to find is we can't get taxed anymore, so we can start getting fined and feed, and that seems to be what's happening with a lot of information.
If it's reasonable, I guess that's okay, because there's been times when we're waiting to find out if there's open utilities that were paid on these lien searches, and they just take forever, and they don't care. There's nobody at the county that it's on their priority list.
Well, right now, just an average lien search in Hillsborough County is about $150, and Sarasota is about $300, and in Miami-Dade it's over $500. The turn times for Hillsborough are about 5 days. Sarasota is about 6-7 days. Miami-Dade's 18 days to obtain the lien search, so that is delaying closings, and it's just adding a whole nother level of frustration.
And going back to what you said with regards to customer service and things being outsourced with a lot of these bank-owned companies that have been contracted to do and perform the closing, they don't even do it until, a couple days before closing.
No, because, a lot of times what happens is there are what we call hard costs. There are hard costs involved in obtaining some of this information. So if that file cancels, the attorney or the law firm or the title company may have to eat those costs. And so it is costing everybody more and more and more money to perform these transactions. And that is a big reason why a lot of title agencies and small law firms are getting out of residential real estate, the closing side of things, because it has just gotten so costly to do business anymore.
Well, it's like with surveys, when the market got crazy and started drying up and things were flopping and short sales weren't closing, title companies, I'm sure there was plenty of surveys on your books that you have to figure out, how that, and really it's the buyer's responsibility.
Yeah. So, that's, those surveys, for instance, I think the number was 70% of title agencies went out of business after 2008, after the crash. So 70% of all saved files and old surveys in those files are gone too.
What's the state's policy? Like when a company closes, aren't the underwriters supposed to keep those records, or what happens?
You're supposed to, but time and time again, I would run into the situation where I found out, title company XYZ threw all their files in a dumpster. Because when you've lost, these are small business owners. When you've lost your baby, when you've lost your American dream, you're not going to necessarily play by the rules and turn your files over to the underwriter. You're just going to light everything on fire and walk out. And that's what we found happen on a lot of these situations. A lot of folks did do the right thing and they stored their files. Our company acquired a number of companies' files, local people that went under during the crash. So we own a ton of folks' files simply because we do so much business in the Tampa Bay market that we want to be able to service those files.
Well, you may have that file again in the future, and it's going to make it easier.
We're going to see it again one day. So we want to we want to be able to help our clients.
Aaron Davis, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we're about out of time. So in case you want to reach myself or the guest, our off-air number is 813-377-2775. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and across the web at Tampa Home Talk. Again, off-air number where you can call us or text us in these crazy questions. And I think you probably have a link, right, that I can post so that a homeowner could search for open permits if they have them?
Yeah, matter of fact, there's several links to that, but if they want to go to our website at htitle.com, title.com, and we can direct them from there.
And we'll post that also on Tampa Home Talk. Again, you can call us or text us at 813-377-2775 and catch us across the web. This Saturday, we have a fantastic show lined up for you. We have Jennifer Osgood with Ameriprise Financial Services. She's going to be talking about how to plan and prepare for your child's college and also some of the things you need to know to be financially free. Coming up this month, Financial Peace University at our office, July 26th or 27th, whatever that Saturday is. I'm trying to think. We'll post that on our website too. We've got a couple spots left. And this is going to conclude our show for today. Again, July 26th, Financial Peace University, 9-week course starting at 10:30 till noon, and you will feel awesome when you're done. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll be back every Thursday and Saturday at 5 p.m. But for this week, we are out.
long, long way from home. There's no reason to belong. How we end up here at all. And I think it's time to think it's time to think it's time to
Love where you live, or my mommy will fix it. And we're out.